basement of La Penta. It's WICR.
Hello, Iona College. Welcome back to the Sports Vault. Jersey Joe here with a quick little Tuesday morning update. Go over a couple big stories last night. Obviously, if you're watching on the live stream, you can see I'm wearing the Mean Joe Green Pittsburgh Steelers jersey. The Steelers, of course, pulling off the big win last night on Monday Night Football. Unbelievable, really. I mean, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, 21 points in a wild 120 seconds at the end of the first half. They scored 21 points in the final 120 seconds. Now, I was doing a paper while watching this in the process, so I didn't pay as much attention to it as maybe I usually do, but you just look up at this game, and to be honest, I don't think both these teams are very good. I don't think the Steelers are that great. I think the Texans' defense is very good, but offensively, you saw last night with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, there were points at the end of that game where they really should have been running the ball more, and they were passing the ball. Put the ball in Arian Foster's hands. He's the best offensive weapon on that team. Fitzpatrick, you give him credit, he's a tough guy, but at the end of the day, he's really not the guy you need there. If you put a good quarterback on that Texan team, you've got something going there. But Pittsburgh, it was a really ugly first half until they had that wild kind of streak there. But overall, I don't like either of these teams, not that much at all. I mean, obviously, in the AFC and AFC South, you've got the Colts, hands down the best team in that division. And then when you go to the AFC North, in that division, it's probably a toss-up between Cincinnati and Baltimore. I'm growing less and less in love with Cincinnati, especially with Andy Dalton's inability to beat the big teams. And I'm liking Baltimore a lot more. I believe Cincinnati and Baltimore will play each other at Cincinnati. That's going to be a really interesting game because Andy Dalton's had a really rough stretch right now, losing at New England, tying to the Carolina Panthers, and then not even scoring a single point at Indianapolis. So he's had a really rough 3-game stretch. A.J. Green's been dinged up. A lot of his big weapons have been hurt. This is going to be a really important matchup here. But for Pittsburgh, I think they're really blurring that line between mediocre, 8-8 around somewhere like that. That's what they've been the last couple seasons, and I think you're really starting to see that. And I heard someone say something interesting. Pittsburgh's defensive scheme with Dick LeBeau is still sound, which would make sense, and then it's just the players aren't able to really execute that much anymore, and it makes sense because defensively, it's a kind of a weird mishmash. You got some older veteran guys, you've got some younger guys in between, and so it makes kind of sense, but overall, definitely not the most riveting Monday night game in the world. It had its moments, but just for the final score, I don't know if I said it yet, you had the Pittsburgh Steelers winning the game 30-23. They've won 16 straight games on Monday Night Football since 1991, so of course they're Pittsburgh Steelers. You got to give them a lot of respect there. But overall, the main story I wanted to get to this morning was in the NBA world. Whenever I have a chance to come on and talk something involving LeBron James, you've got to make it happen. And part of the big news yesterday was the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Chicago Bulls played a preseason game yesterday. The season is going to be here before we know it. Next Tuesday, Spurs-Mavericks, opening night game for the defending champion Spurs. The Cavs weirdly don't open their season until for the Friday of that week against the Bulls, so that's going to be exciting because Cleveland Cavaliers basketball, I'm all in, man. So you go to this one, and then the weird story is you've got a quote from LeBron, and he said, obviously, the Bulls are a better team than Cleveland, than the Cavs are right now. And I think his reasoning for saying it was very, very reasonable, and I'll read it to you. He said, you've got to go through something in order to create a bond. That means for the worst, we've got to lose ball games that we think we should have won. We've got to get into an argument here and there every now and then and just to test each other out. It has to happen. I know it is going to happen. A lot of guys don't see it, but I see it. That's the only way we're going to be able to grow. And I think that it really speaks to kind of the youth and the inexperience of this Cavs team. You look at all these guys, Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, Deion Waiters, Tristan Thompson. There's so many young guns on this team. The core of this team is very young. You go back to Cleveland, Miami with LeBron. That was a lot of veteran guys. Chris Bosh was in his prime. Dwayne Wade, he'd been there for a while. LeBron obviously is LeBron. You had a lot of big names who had been there a long time. You guys like Shane Battier the second year. You had Mike Miller there. So you had a lot of guys who'd been there before and done it. This Cavs team is very, very young. They really haven't had that time yet. The Cavs have had their time. their troubles, especially before LeBron came back. Deion Waiters and Kyrie Irving had their feuds. So this is a team that's been used to losing the core of this team, and now they're all of a sudden had these massively high expectations where a lot of people put them as the NBA title favorites, and LeBron is 100% right. There's going to be struggles with this team. You go back to the Heat the first year with LeBron James. They started out 9-8, and everybody was going and say, I remember watching the first game with the Heat. They played the Boston Celtics, one of the opening games of the season. Every camera, every media outlet was just tuned in. It was the coverage for a week, just waiting for this game to happen. And when the Heat lost the first game, of course, overreaction times a million. And then when they had that start going 9-8, the sky was falling. This thing was not going to work. It was a huge mistake. And then, you know what happened? The Heat reeled off and won 20 games in a row. So it all comes down to chemistry. The longer it's going to be there's going to be growing pains here. There really is. I mean, you've got guys like Kyrie Irving who are going to have to change their game a little bit. Kevin Love is going to change. Everybody's going to go through a little bit of a change. But if you stay the course and you stay persistent, everything is going to be fine, because you look at the roster and the potential for this roster here. When they gel and they mesh, this roster's a million times better than the Chicago Bulls. I like the Bulls, defensively sound, probably the best defensive team in the NBA. I mean, Tom Thibodeau always bringing great defense. I mean, Jimmy Butler, Paul Gasol you bring in there. Joakim Noah is incredible. The key for that team, though, is Derrick Rose, and I don't like ifs. Ifs are always very dangerous in sports. If Derrick Rose stays healthy is always going to be a big problem, and I root for the guy. I love watching Derrick Rose. Such a dynamic player when he's on the court. So much fun to watch. But that's a big if there, because if he's gone, this is a team that really has had troubles to score the basketball. You bring in Doug McDermott. I think Tony Snell is going to get even better. So you're going to get better there, but this is a team that's identity is on the defensive end, and they're not the best offensive team in the world. And the Cleveland Cavaliers, that's the thing that I don't think anyone else can really match them with, is depth on the offense, and when they buy in on defense. Defense is a mindset, offense is a skill set. So I think that defense, just if everyone buys in, they have so much off. I mean, you think of the best four players. Think of that. I keep going back to it. Tristan Thompson at center, or Anderson Varejao. LeBron at small forward. At point guard, Kyrie Irving. Shooting guard, Deion Waiters, and Kevin Love at power forward. That is a dream team roster right there. There's not a lot of teams who can put that out there. I mean, it's all going to come down to, though, defense, meshing together, gelling together, and that's David Blatt's job, and that's going to be LeBron's job. And look, those are two very, very smart guys. The Cavaliers did win that preseason game the other day, but I think LeBron, it just shows you he gets it. Look at last year with Mario Chalmers. They had that incident where LeBron and him were getting into it on the bench. Things like that are going to happen. It's a natural thing to happen in sports, and I think that LeBron is watching for it. And whenever you have a guy as smart as LeBron is, with as high a basketball IQ as he does, I think he gets it. He's the perfect guy to have in this situation with all these young guys. And to be honest, I want it to happen right away. And that's the thing, is I'm expecting that it might take a little while. I mean, they're not going to come into the opening night and go and win every game by 20 points. It's going to take a little while. It might take a couple weeks, maybe the first month of the season, where they still start to really gel and get comfortable with each other. But at the end of the day, when they buy in on defense and when everything gels together, this team's just going to be just fine. And I'm looking forward to making my predictions for who's going to go 1-8 in the East, 1-8 in the West, because we've got some injuries right now, which definitely is going to make things. But the East, to be honest, is wide open. I mean, I think at the end, when this whole Cavs team came together with the decision part 2 going back to Cleveland, I think I was agreeing with people. I put the Bulls above the Cavs, but the more I think about it, the more I've watched the Summer League, the preseason so far, I think I'm putting the Cavs as number 1. Now, for the first couple months of the season, it might be the opposite. Bulls are probably going to be number 1. But I think after a while and this Cavs team starts to gel together, it's going to be fairly clear they're the best team in the East. And there's not a lot of talent in the East. I mean, with Paul George going down for the Pacers, this is a pretty weak Eastern division again. You've got Bulls, Heat, and then the Cavs, I think, are the best three. Then you have good teams like the Raptors, the Wizards, the Hornets are definitely going to start getting up there. And then you have weird bubble teams who were made the playoffs last year, like the Hawks, the Nets. I think the Nets take a step back this year. The Knicks have a chance, but again, when you have Carmelo Anthony, I'm never a big fan of building a team on a guy like that. So the East is wide open. I mean, aside from the top three teams and a couple pretty good teams like the Hornets, like the Wizards, there's not a lot of challenge here in this East. I mean, it's going to come down to the Bulls and the Cavs beating each other up, and then the Heat are going to be interesting as well. But overall, the West, compared to the West, it's Cavs, it's Heat, and it's going to be very exciting. Next Tuesday, the season starts. Going to have a very big NBA special on that Tuesday, October 28th for our WICR Radiothon. All NBA coverage, but I'm glad I got to come in here a little bit and give you the sports update. Thank you all for tuning in. You all have a great day. World Series tonight should be an exciting matchup.